Oh boy. Oh, let me stretch real quick. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's the Wireheads podcast. This is your favorite bad channel to watch on Thursday evenings. If you're here in America, if you're in Europe, it's very early on Friday mornings for you guys, but welcome nonetheless. I am one of the two gonks that runs this thing. My name is Emmerron. I am a sometimes content creator, all times professional game master. Joining me as always is my co-host.
Hello everybody, I am Diamond Dust. I stream over here on Twitch. I'm doing stuff over on YouTube, and also I am a professional game master as well. And I guess alongside all that, yes, there is a meat body. We don't ask about it. But with that, also, my wife's hand in the background.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't worry about it. But that being said, I hope you all are having a lovely day as we dive into episode 55 of Wireheads. It's already September.
It is.
And I just got here in May.
Yeah, it's been 4 months since you entered the
Prepper Jack.
The oven of hell.
I have not gotten my cyber gallbladder implant yet.
No, we're working on paying for the removal of the Ganic one. That is the project in the background right now. More to come once we know the lay of that land, particularly. But yeah, that's where we're at.
The one thing that's not immersive about Cyberpunk Red.
Yeah. That's the one thing that makes Well, no, there are two things. Two things about Cyberpunk that look better than our own reality. Everyone has cool cyberware, and medical costs are not atrocious. These are the two things that Cyberpunk shockingly makes things seem far better. The medical costs are wild how vastly different they are.
Given the time of the Red, money is really hard to come by, but still, for just a low cost of 10 eddies, you can just get contraception, or you can get a brand new eye for a month's worth of rent. And it's and not for me, I think 300 years worth of monthly payments is what they're going to require.
Yeah, it's fun fact, fun little etymological fact for those of you who like the history of words or their origins. Mortgage is literally death debt. It is mort as in mortis, as in death, and I believe gage is originated from the Greek for debt. So yeah, it is a death debt, or in other words, you're paying this until you die. So yeah, that's fun little fact to start our podcast this week. Good limb replacement is cheap. Bad limb replacement may come weekly. Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
We take a little of the pros with the cons. As long as you don't die, little humanity loss and possible PTSD is...
I mean, a medical
worth,
grade
I think.
is only $50.
Right. So...
But anyway, what are we talking about today?
So, the depressing IRL shit aside, today, we are going to be talking about some fun stuff. We've got a couple of topics today. Last week, part of the reason we did not go is we kind of hit a bottom of the barrel for topics. And we really were scratching our heads on what the hell do we talk about? And we've both been busy with other projects on top of all of this. So it was let's take a week, let our brains cool off. Let's come back next week. We'll have a week to really think this through and decide how do we want to talk about this. or what do we want to talk about, and then how do we want to talk about it. So, in true Wireheads fashion, we got to last night, realized we hadn't done any of that homework, and we're like, cool. Well, we've still given ourselves more than half an hour, so we're actually still giving ourselves time, which is awesome. Great. Love it. So we've come up with some topics today that if you are a player of Cyberpunk and less a GM, this episode, at least the first half of this episode, maybe a little less your speed. It is going to be talking more about the GMs because there are a lot of people, I think, who came, at least through my community, because of my series on how to GM the game. And I know people ask us questions a lot about like how we use certain tools, how we approach certain scenarios. So this could be interesting, and in players, it could give you some insight on your end of the table for what we are regularly kind of like parsing and how we do what we do. But we want to talk about GMing for a purpose, and what that means is when you are GMing, there are a couple of different reasons you could be GMing, right? And the first two that I think everyone is going to immediately guess at is, am I GMing for a one-shot or am I GMing for a campaign? Those are, yes, different purposes. You have to do different things to prepare for them. Ours looks at it even a little more zoomed out than that, though, because regardless of those, typically if you're GMing either one, there's some very, there's some pretty good overlap between the two things of what you're going to do. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But the big picture stuff that we wanted to talk about in this topic was when you're GMing and you're GMing for your friends or your family, right? The people that you know really well, and all of you have gathered around a table, and we're going to have a fun time. We're going to sit down, we're going to play some tabletop, and you just agree to do that. That is your social gathering for the next 4 hours, right? That's great. But that is one way to GM. And Diamond was on the Forlorn Dopes last night and actually had a really interesting line of questioning kind of come up for her in the midst of that. I'm going to shut the door just because I can hear my voice echoing a little bit on your end. That's fine. That should fix that.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not something you have to apologize for. That's why I said I'm shutting my door, so you don't have to worry about that because I have airflow in here.
Also, shout out to Cyber Smiley and 000. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. The show you guys ran last night was awesome. I really enjoyed as a listener. But they got into a really interesting line of questioning with Diamond, and it made me think about how I would answer some of the questions they were asking, because they were talking about what it's like for her to be a professional GM, right? And what that is like in comparison to, or in contrast to, your typical, you've got a bunch of your friends around the table, we're all GMing, we're GMing for those people that we know and, have a relationship with already. We kind of know their lines, their boundaries, we know how to respect those more implicitly. And where those differ, between doing that with a group that we know really well and doing it for a group of more or less strangers, right? And then this led to us talking a little bit after the show last night about well, then there's a difference between doing it for that, on a recurring basis like we do on StartPlaying for campaigns and such, and doing it for a convention, which is very much, you got a pop in, pop out group of strangers who are looking to play at a table. And they're just looking to experience the game, and you, my dear GM, are the conduit via which they are going to do that. You have volunteered, like we have for, one of these conventions like PAX or Gen Con, or one that we have coming up in a couple of weeks. We've got Roll20 Con that both Diamond and I I believe, are going to be running games at. I've got mine up already on my Start Playing page.
Mine will be coming up soon.
Yeah, so Diamond's going to be working on hers in the not too distant future here. So we'll be having games popping up that you can join for that. I've got one on Friday at noon Pacific right now for the weekend that's happening. It should be, I believe, September 26th is when my game is going to be taking place. When you're doing those kinds of GM games where it's very much, run in, run out, and that there's like not only that, but there's some like very specific time constraints that are tailored into your slot, because there's an expectation that the game take no longer than like 4 hours, and that's like a hard out. You have to get it done by 4 hours, because then someone else is coming in after you to run their game, and that is like, it's important to stay to that kind of consistent schedule, right? This is where that is now a different type of jamming, because you have all these other constraints that it has to be done in one. You have to get it done inside your time envelope that you've been given. And it is, in a lot of cases, going to be everyone at that table could be brand new to the system, unless you are running the game at the convention in a way that is like specifying that you can be, you need to be knowledgeable of the system prior to joining, because those do exist. They have not typically been the ones that I or Diamond have run, though, at conventions. Typically, I've always been like, I want to teach new people, so I always want to run beginner-friendly content. I never want to run stuff that requires you have an advanced understanding of my rules. Yeah, 4 hours. Fucking Cody comes in, 4 hours? What about 7 as per Neon Inferno norms? We got it down to 4. Okay, look. And that was actually, thank you, Cody. You've just brought up the last type of GMing that we wanted to talk about today, which was when you're GMing for broadcast, which is also very different in a lot of ways. It has some overlap with professional GMing, but it is incredibly, there's a lot that goes into that, especially if you're a solo outfit like Diamond or I are, where we are our own IT, we're our own, our own broadcast booth, and we're running the game as GM in addition to those other hats. We're wearing all three at the same time, and it can be a lot. So we wanted to talk about all of these and give you, our lovely audience, little insight to our side of things, and also, give you some of those, the peek behind the curtain, so to speak, on what we have to do in order to put some of these things on, as well as kind of giving you an insight into this, so that if you wanted to do what we do, a little bit, at least from our perspective, of how this works and how you can prepare yourself and what to look out for and that sort of thing. So I suppose let's kick this off with, because I suppose, Diamond, would you like to begin where things are going to be most familiar in terms of the GMing for your kind of friends and family, or do we want to dive into the deep end of the pool first, so to speak here?
Let's go to the deep end and come and make our, like, let's start with the most remote stuff, and then we get closer back to what we're most familiar with.
Okay, so I suppose then, if we're going to dive into the deep end of the pool, let me explain what the shallows look like briefly then, just so that we have ground levels, so that you understand why these are different, right? So when you're GMing for friends and family, the couple of very ground level things here to keep in mind, obviously, we know everyone's boundaries. We know their lines and veils in a lot of cases. And if we don't, there's a lot more grace given to the person running the game, that they're not doing those things that might violate those boundaries maliciously. They're doing it because they aren't aware or not. They're not just maybe not being entirely careful about it. And it's not because of malice most of the time. It's usually because they just overstepped a boundary and not realized it, right? They're trying to do justice to their setting, story, etc., without, necessarily meaning it to hurt anyone in particular. So there's grace given there. that in these other scenarios we'll talk about might not be as readily given because we're dealing with more either strangers or at the very least an audience that could be strangers. If we're talking about broadcast. The other thing to keep in mind is that mistakes being made, there's usually a high amount of patience for that as well. And while I'm not saying that mistakes don't happen. Just watch Neon Inferno, especially the early part of the first season. I make mistakes all the time. And it's true in my professional games. I still make mistakes from time to time. That is a normal, natural part of GMing. You never, ever, in any of these scenarios, are expected to be perfect. But there is a higher patience for you taking time to figure shit out than there are in these other scenarios. And there maybe is more space for that as well in times where there is a hard in, hard out that we don't typically have in casual GMing. So those are kind of the ground level expectations. With casual GMing, where you're just running for friends and family, there's a high tolerance for error, and there is a high degree, usually of patience and understanding for mistakes to be made or rules to have to be referenced, and a lack of familiarity is to be somewhat expected, especially if it's your first time into a system. That is why casual GMing is a great place to start if you're learning. I don't necessarily recommend diving straight into the deep ends we're going to talk about here as your first time GMing, though I know people who have done it. This is not something that is like unheard of. I know people personally that was the way they did it. They just flew into the deep end and loved the water. It was nice. They loved diving around, swimming 8 feet down and coming back. They loved all of it. So you might do fine, but just take what we're going to tell you here as your warning, your fair warning given, right? So Diamond, I suppose, which of the 3 deep ends here do we want to start with our audience? How do you want to begin to talk about this?
So I'd say let's go with the most remote one, even for us, and that's convention GMing.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty deep end. It's the least accessible, I would say, out of the deep ends that we have today. Because like, there's a shocking amount of opportunity to do this, by the way. There are plenty of volunteer spots at Gen Con and stuff for people to come and like be part of GMs. I think we had something like 24, 25 people on staff with double exposure just for our Telsorian games this year at Gen Con. So that, to give you an idea, that's just one publisher at Gen Con, and there are like dozens, if not hundreds, of publishers that need people running stuff during that convention in particular. So yes, so I just want to give that as our forward to that, but Diamond, please continue. I'm so sorry.
So, convention GMing, for me, is probably kind of one of the tougher ones, because I like to have... there are GMs out there that can, just bounce between groups so quickly. And I don't mind doing convention GMing. And you'll find groups that either really work well together or... I have seen awkward first dates go better. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
So with convention GMing, especially for those of us GMs who are very detailed oriented, this is not the spot for it. You are very much dropping, somewhere between 4 to 6 people feet first into what is cyberpunk, but without all the extra glitz, glamour, bells, whistles that come with it.
Yeah.
And usually you will be provided an adventure by the publisher they want you to run. Now, I'm willing to do that, even if they throw something at me, like, even if our tile is just like, so here is something from the Cyberpunk Edge Runners mission kit, the yellow box.
It's a great yellow box. I love that yellow box.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It is a nice yellow box, but it's just like, and like it was even finally put out there during the Forlorn Dopes. I like the time of the red. It just feels much better for me compared to that. But I am more happy to still work with what we got for the 2070s.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things where players, you stick to what's in there. You make some edits of your own as needed, but you stick to what's in the adventure. And it mostly, I think for the most part, the adventures are just safe enough as is that like the guardrails are already put up.
Little bit, yeah. I would say there's definitely enough that I've seen in past Cyberpunk convention games that like it's not like they totally put kitty gloves on. Like you absolutely do have like mature content in there, but it's not the grungy I don't think I've seen body horror stuff pop up in convention games too often.
If we were to look at this like via the Edge Runners anime for that certain group of you that that's going to start yelling at me, this is like episodes episodes 1 through 3 to maybe 4. There's some dark matter in there,
but it's
some dark matter.
It's mostly in the minority. Like the dark subject matter is mostly there to serve as contrast or serve as obstacle, and less to serve as the set dressing. And that is the important thing. Because the darkness, when darkness becomes a set dressing, that's where you've got a dark themed game going. And that's typically not what we see at conventions.
And usually conventions will already put the descriptors out there of like, hey, this is stuff you're going to have to be okay with if you sign up for this event.
Yeah. Some conventions go so far as to like, the one that we're running games at down in Tucson at the end of, or at the beginning of next month, technically, not the end of this month, but it's October 3rd through 5th. We're going to be at RinCon. RinCon required us to submit trigger warnings or content warnings as part of like, here's what you could encounter in the same kind of way that like the ESRB would place it on the back of a video game box. So that is something that usually we had to submit.
I guess if I had to put anything with convention gaming, it would be like rated T. Is how I feel with like Cyberpunk with some of the adventures.
I still levy Cyberpunk as
M.
I levy Cyberpunk as M almost every time, just because
it's like very much in that shallow part of M though with the convention games.
Usually it is. There aren't a lack of references in, because depending on the games that have been chosen, right? Or the missions that have been chosen, because I know last year at Gen Con, we ran just a whole host of different stuff out of the Tales book, out of
the Jumpstart Kit even. Like, we were running just a lot of random stuff that, or maybe this was 2 years ago. This might have been 2 years ago. Last year, we had a big collection of different games.
Yeah.
This year, we just kind of had a very small selection.
Yeah, this year was like 2 or 3 different scenarios that we ran. But the reason I bring this up is one of the scenarios, to give you an idea, that technically, like, could you run a con setting with time constraints being a part of this? Yes. Content-wise, would I want to run it at a con setting, depending on how that con was laid out or set up? I don't know if I would. There's a scream sheet in the data pack called Snuff, which is literally about your players hunting a snuff filmmaker through the seedy underbelly of Night City. And like you're meeting with like pornographers that make stuff in BD format. It's very much like, if you want exposure to the full dark underbelly of Night City in one mission, Snuff is like that mission for me. Like, that is what I do to throw shock value in my players' faces and show them what this world's underbelly really looks like. It's I think the best example to date that we've had of that so far. But yeah.
Yeah, and also with convention convention games, you won't know these people.
Yeah.
So I feel with convention games why opportunities seem a little slim, and I felt this more in the fact of like getting put into Gen Con. It was just like you have to know your stuff. You don't have to know everything, but you have to know what you're doing when you get in here.
Yes.
Because like this year, these people paid for that time slot. Mm-hmm. They have shown up. They expect you to be able to run the adventure. And then I also on top of that, like more likely than not, your hotel is being paid for. You are probably like in the case of the group that we go through Double Exposure, we also sometimes receive products as a form of payment. So you are really having to earn your pay during conventions if you're running games that way. Now, if it's a casual pickup game at a convention, that's different. Yeah, these are still strangers. And I really want to do a pickup game sometime at a convention, see what happens. But
but at that point, it's very
have to have some discussion.
At that point, you kind of begin to assume a degree of risk yourself, because pickup games are, by their very nature, they're going to involve more whatever the GM says goes, right? There's less front end filtering or moderation on that. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with them. Like, as long as you have an open mind and you're not looking for someone who is like going to reshape the experience to your tastes, that is fine. But go into that knowing this has not been front end moderated, this has not been filtered, this is going to be raw. And if you go in and there is something distasteful, the GM is not to blame for that. That is just, this is the game they've chosen to run. And if those GMs are smart, this is what I will say from my perspective. If I were to run a pickup game like that, I would, one, lean on an adventure that generally does avoid most common triggers. And two, I would have a brief session zero discussion with my players about, let's talk lines and veils. Is there any boundaries that I need to be aware of for anyone that is gathered here for this game? Because I know I am running this in an unlisted, unfiltered fashion. Do I need to be aware of any triggers or things like that before we start? And then levy that out into the crowd.
It's like, even then, like with, if we're sitting down to a 4-hour adventure, that's a pickup game, for example, Cyberpunk, more likely than not, my go-to picks would be Red Chrome Cargo. Trying to think, what is it? Smash the Box.
Smash Box is good.
I love Smash the Box, and honestly, I find that this adventure is great with drunk players and a drunk GM. The Haunted Vendit. Haunted
Vendit's fun. It's even, yeah. The added one I would link in there for my own personal tastes would also be oh shoot, which one? I just had it.
Describe the story.
That's the thing. I like it, my brain just went whoop. The Apartment. The Apartment is another really definitely not Kansas, could also work. Both of those could run very, very tightly.
Definitely, or like, The Apartment though, for me, it feels just a little long.
We ran a version of it last year at Gen Con though. Like that is workable in 4 hours. You just have to you have to be really mindful of your beat pacing. Yeah. And this is where we get into that segment that I was talking about of your time constraint matters deeply. 4 hours is less than you think it is when you get into adventures that have a little more complexity going on.
Well, yeah, and also The Apartment, for as complex as it is, and also you have players showing up, and we had the 2077 weapons, and we had so much going on that I was struggling to keep up, and I tried my best with it. I really did. And also having the one person it doesn't take that long to rack another round into the rifle. I'm like,
3 seconds.
This is how the gun works.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the glaive the Tektronica glove.
Oh, the Grov. Yeah. Or the
Grod,
Grod. Yeah.
Yeah,
The Grod is, but that's the thing. That thing's bolt
so hard.
That thing's bolt is like, it's a mile long. So you have to like really wrench it back, load another 50 caliber round. Like it is
76 damage.
And it does 76 damage. So like,
or at least that was the convention variant of it. I don't know.
I think the Grod is just in the CEMK. I think that is the.
Okay.
At least I thought it was.
It's Maven's weapon. I'm trying to remember if because I remember seeing on the convention sheet 76. That doesn't look right. Is it? Oh no, it's 76.
I think because that one's a specific, because there were some of them that they like named out in the CEMK, and the Grod was one of them. So it's exotic. It does that as its exotic feature.
Yeah. Of course, when you start pulling out the niche games, like Cyborg, the people who want to play Cyborg will find you.
They will. Borg fans are like, I don't know
they're a different breed of interesting.
They're a different breed. They're a different breed. They're one of those groups though at conventions that like, it's so hard for me to gauge outside a convention how big or small the Borg fan base is, because at conventions they are one of the like loudest groups. Like there are so many of them, and they love that game. They love that game so deeply. So yeah, when you're picking up that, the players coming to that game in particular, if they know what they're doing, they are 100%. They know what they're diving into, which is dark. It's gritty. Yeah. So not to get too stuck on this point, just because we're already plenty deep, and we're like halfway through this half of the episode. So with that said, so that's kind of convention GMing. So like, you have to be mindful of how much time you're burning. The more complex your adventure is, the more you need to kind of be mindful of that. Like there are some adventures that when we're given them by Artel for running at conventions, there will be advice on like, if you get to this point and you have like less than 2 hours remaining, cut this next part down to the following, or like make it a single beat or a single round or whatever, right? But like get it done quick so that you jump to the next thing, because like you're more concerned about finishing the gig as a whole than you are about the, like Diamond said, kind of the minutia, right? The details. The fine points can get lost, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, the other thing about convention games that you're not going to get out of most other one shots is people can die at the end of it, and it's consequenceless, because
this is also the Costco sample. The Costco sample. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, that was the analogy I was looking for.
Yeah, and it's a great way to put it. Honestly, it is a Costco sample of the tabletop.
I am so sorry. Chat, I got loud there, but yeah.
Not on my end, you didn't. So yeah.
Next up, I know you said these two kind of layer together for you, but I do still see a little window of separation between these two.
And this is why I wanted to make sure we had time for this discussion. So please.
Yeah. So next up, of course, we can put these two kind of parallel, and it's something that both Emmerron and I do. Live broadcast or like live plays and professional GMing. So I suppose for starts, how we both got our start was live play. You know, for me, I was over on Cybernation Uncensored, and I would run shows over there. I did some shows for a previous group I was with, and now I'm doing stuff here, and I'll be working with ESP here in the near future, Enchanted Sorcery Productions. Shout out to all you lovely folks. But there is like kind of a similar track between these two, but there's still just enough separation that they are kind of in their own camps. Which side do we want to start on here?
So I'd say let's start from the pro GMing side, because I think that opens the door for a lot of the things that can kind of line up between the two. When you explain how it works professional, it starts to make sense why I think these, for me at least, are largely similar. But yeah, let's start there.
Okay, so professional GMing. I know. Before anyone in the crowd starts getting mad about it, yes, we are professional GMs. If you've been here, it's episode 55. I don't know why you're hate watching us, but thanks for the view.
Thanks for the view. Yeah, exactly.
I'll bat that one out there, but also to the rest of to all you in the audience, thank you very much for supporting us. But when it comes to professional GMing, you are really selling your time, because anyone can GM. And then there's those of us that take hey, I really like GMing this game. I can, like, the way I approached it was just like, I really like GMing this game. And I'm like, hey guys, you want to play this game? Well, I want to play insert funny D20 fantasy game that requires 3 books to run. It costs way too much money. So yeah, I'm like, okay. So I got introduced to Start Playing, and you're more selling your time when it comes to professional GMing, I feel. But you have to be really well put together for this one. Like, I wouldn't say you have to know the rules inside and out, back to cover, but you've had to have at least read the core rule books. Yeah. At least once or twice. Like, you had a good deep read of it once or twice.
I would suggest always, if you're thinking about doing this professionally, there are a couple of things that make this very different from casual GMing, which is, one, you are not always going to know everyone at your table. Like, Diamond and I are both blessed by the fact that we know a fair number of our players, and Diamond in particular has had groups going with her. I think her longest has been about 2 years now.
Yep.
And I've had a few of my players have stuck with me for about a year now. So like, this is where, like, if you get that kind of rapport with those people, this starts to feel like less of an issue, because you become aware of their needs, wants, the way they like to play, the way they feel the game out. But initially, you're GMing for strangers. So session 0 becomes much more important. It is an essential part of this. Yeah. You need to develop safety tools. And it is something that for casual GMs, like, I never touched safety tools as a casual GM back when I started doing those sorts of things, because I already knew the people. I knew where they were sensitive, and I knew where they were sensitive, but not like in a prohibitive way, where, like, if I went to certain lengths, they would be thrown by that and made to feel uncomfortable.
Large spiders.
For Diamond in particular, that's one of those things. Oh my goodness. Barthez, what the hell? That's 10 gifted subs, brother.
Oh, wow.
Thank you so much.
Nice.
So thank you. That's incredibly generous of you. We're already a level 3 hype train. That's crazy. Anyway, so when you start there, that is kind of the first thing, is you are pro GMing for strangers, and you need to take time to get to know them, their boundaries, their needs, their wants. All of that becomes incredibly important. The second thing that you need to be aware of is profits. This is not what we call a massively profitable thing. Doing it full time is not easy. It is. Do not expect to get rich quick off of this unless you are like really good. But that's like, you got to be good to almost the level of like a Brendan Lee Mulligan, or like you need to be running shit like Critical Role and Dimension 20. Not like me or Diamond, where you're in your office or whatever doing this casually. If you want to make like big money, we make enough money to like live off of like a little bit. We make enough to eat. That's about where our line is right now.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but no going into it that is what you're going to be dealing with. It is not a lot of money that you make.
Also, something that I've had to learn, and this is like some questions that even came up on the Forlorn Dopes show here recently, which, if you want, I do answer some more questions talking about professional GMing, because they did hammer me hard about it, and I appreciate that. I like it when people really ask, the questions like that. When you get into professional GMing, like, make sure you are going into it with a game you enjoy. Don't run D&D 5e because that's what everyone plays.
Yes.
Oh no, you are another D&D 5e player, along with you know that meme of the Buzz Lightyear aisle from Toy Story 2?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it looks like.
I am special. Yeah, no, and this is not us doing this just to rib on 5e. There's a lot of 5e.
Yeah.
I'm not ribbing on it, to be fair.
GMs.
Diamond might be, but I'm not. Because it's true. If you like 5e and it's what you know and it's what you're good at, there's plenty of novel 5e space for people to do that in. Like, there are plenty of homebrew scenarios or like third-party scenarios. There are things like what Free League makes several for like the One Ring and stuff that are 5e compatible, that like not many people are by and large running. So if you want to run that, and that is what you're good at and it's what you know, go wild. Like, we're not here telling you what to do. We're just warning you that if you jump into the most like competitive part of the market, there's going to be a potentially lower demand for your services. And that is, that's a tricky
what
thing.
happened with Dagger, like when Daggerheart hit StartPlaying, it exploded overnight. It was like watching the Arasaka Tower bomb go off. Like,
I'm still looking to jump into that pile, by the way. I'm not absent from that. I want to start running Daggerheart professionally because I think the game is incredible. But you go in with a game that you are going to enjoy running, and people will find you. Yes,
people will find you, and they will book you. And like Emmerron said, session 0 is important, but also when you are posting your game, you need to post what topics are going to be covered in this game. Like in the matter of Cyberpunk, you see corporate, oppression, police brutality, just poverty. Like you are, looking at like there may be some people that look at Cyberpunk and it's just like, this is my everyday life. I really don't want to do this.
Right.
And it's just like, you know what? I don't blame you. We're good.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I will say this too, to kind of add on to that. The platform Diamond and I both use is StartPlaying, and the platform there does a really good job of requiring, it requires and implements from the ground level a lot of those like front end safety tools, so that you're not diving off into a deep end that you don't think. Like, a players are going to join you and then be shocked by the fact that this table talks about, like, we have characters where, depression is like mentioned, or a theme within some of these stories, or, poverty, or like Diamond was just saying, like police brutality, sometimes body horror. Like, if we think we're going to do these things, then we will tell that up on the front end of this. Like, this could happen or has a decent chance of happening. So if you're signing up for the table, know that this is the thing you are walking into potentially. It is not going to be necessarily all the time, but it is something that we foresee has a greater than generally 80% likelihood of coming up at some point within our game. That is my benchmark, at least. Like, I will warn if a topic or content type is possibly got an 80% or greater chance of coming up at some point during either the adventure or the campaign, depending on if it's a one shot or a campaign that I'm posting for. So yeah, that is something you absolutely have to do. You have to be mindful of that. The other thing though is if you're using a platform like StartPlaying, this is another thing that a lot of people wander in and just kind of think, oh, well, I can do this. You do need people who can vet you. You need a certain number of reviews And they can be from your real life friends and people
Yep.
who played with you like in real space, right? Like you don't need to have had it be like online games with strangers. It can be just you've run enough games for enough people in your real circle of friends and family that you're like, please leave me a review because I need someone to vet me. And then like once you gathered that, then they'll start, going through the process of reviewing you, making sure you're like up to speed with the way things work. Like there's an onboarding process. It's not something you can just snap your fingers in and click into. So yeah, that's kind of the other thing to kind of know leading up. If you're thinking about going pro, that is part of the process. It is not an overnight thing.
One of the other things that was actually brought up during the Forlorn Dopes is when you have that player show up at your table. And sometimes you have to understand you have the right to refuse business.
You do.
And even though they are throwing money at you to do this, like I've had players just be like, what? I pay you. I'm like, yes, but you are bad for business. I didn't tell them they're bad for business, but they're bad for business if they make all the other players uncomfortable.
So there's also this weird, because I know Diamond, we had this discussion. Again, we're not trying to call anyone in particular out or name names. Yeah. But this happened at her table where she mentioned to me at one point, a player was mad that they had died because they're like, but I pay you, I should win. It's like, no, you're paying me for my time to run a game that is true to the game. I am not going to run a game that just because you are paying, you win everything. I'm here to present the honest version of the game, the challenging version of the game. Especially for games like Cyberpunk, where it's like the lethality, like it's funny because the Forlorn Dopes were bringing up like, well, Red's not as lethal as 2020 was. I'm like, it's still plenty lethal for a modern system. It's like extremely, it's not extremely deadly, but it is leaned toward the deadly end of the spectrum, giving enough room in the middle for players to like negotiate their way out of bad situations. But it's like, it's still more deadly than like D&D or Pathfinder or any of those. Like it is on the deadly end of that spectrum. And so
Red is lethal if you make it lethal.
It is. And it's very easy to turn the heat up to that level. Like it is shockingly easy to do that if you really want it to feel like that. It's Barthez. Yeah, as case in point, Barthez is one of my players in my Saturday game. And he had it happen where his character died in session 1. His Netrunner died due to a bunch of elven assassins coming out from around the shadowy corners of an alley, and they all dropped poison arrows into him, and he died. So that it happens. And just because you've paid for a spot at the table, if you're a player looking to do this, you are not entitled to win all the time.
Yeah.
Similarly, GMs, there is no entitlement that players have to survive every challenge you throw at them. They are not guaranteed to win every fight just because they paid you money.
Also, there is no CR system in Cyberpunk Red. There is no
there kind of is. There's kind of a CR system. It's just it's handled differently.
1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1,
yeah,
and then
that's close enough.
It's
that's what that should be.
You roll up into a shoal of piranhas as
right.
A group of rank 4. Yeah, piranhas in small groups. Sure, you could probably waste them across the ground, but a whole shoal of them, that is a lot of very heavy pistols. Yeah, that is a lot of polymer one-shots. Yeah.
Well, and Prepper Jack brings a good point here. He says players should generally have at least a window of opportunity to survive. Yes, they should. And this is where your skill as a GM, I would argue, because like Diamond was saying, if you want a pro GM, you need to at a minimum kind of like read the rules a couple times. I would go a step farther than that. I would suggest that if you are planning on pro GMing, I would say if you want a convention GM, that's true. Like convention GMing, you can come under that with less play experience. Because again, people generally aren't, if they are paying for a seat, the entry is incredibly cheap. Like I think at Gen Con, our games are like $2 or $4 per seat. Like not that expensive, especially because that's kind of the going rate at the whole convention if you are going to participate as a player in any game. But if you are pro GMing, like my seats are about $30 right now, like for the games that I post, or like 40 if you are booking me novel, like I have a time slot and a group and I want you to run for me, my price starts at $40 a seat. Like, and I am charging that money because I am confident I can deliver the value for it. If I wasn't, I wouldn't charge that. Like when I was new, I charged like $15 to $20 a seat, and like my novel booking was like 30. And I've raised those rates for a couple reasons, but I know I'm worth it. That's the big thing. I know if you pay that money to me, I'm going to deliver you an experience worth that money.
Yep.
And I know I have several of my players here in chat, so I'm saying that with the audience being partly consistent of viewers that play at my table for money. So like that is something I am very confident in. But you need to be able to do that. So if you are charging money, unless you're charging a very low rate, you need to be completely confident that you can like do that and not, again, the tolerance for mistakes, it narrows when the amount of money being spent to be at that table is higher. So if you're charging a lot, you need to know a lot. So that brings experience to the forefront. That means you should be running games. You should have a fairly comprehensive knowledge of the at least basic rules of your system that you are running. That all needs to have been done. That is your homework and prep work for starting a professional game, in my opinion. Unless you're charging, again, like a very low amount, like $5 or $10 maybe per seat, which is just not, at that point, you're looking for pocket money, not for a living. You're not looking to do this fully professionally. Yeah.
And also with the way that you present your when you present your games, like you gotta know, the window for mistakes is narrow. You gotta know what you're working on. You gotta have a plan coming into session. There have been times where a GM that I hire has said, "Hey guys, I am not feeling it this week. I'm not feeling well," and it's just like,
"Hi, I'm that GM."
Like, okay, I'll just continue to tweak without my fix. That's fine.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think I've ever been an ass about it.
No.
I like to just be like, it's just like I'm always GMing, so it's just like, man, I gotta get my own fix because you can't get high on your own supply.
Right. Well, with the upcoming single player mode, you too can do that. But it is different though, and I respect the fact that there is a demand for that market. If you are a forever GM and you don't like being a forever GM, like I'm one of those people that I can go months without playing in a game and be totally fine because I run the system that I like, right? This is why Diamond mentioned like this is deeply important, that if you are going to run for a system, that you are comfortable running that system to the point that it's like if you're doing this 3, 4, 5 times a week, you are not going to burn yourself out because it is easy to do if you're not loving it, right? Like there were plenty of times in my early GMing days running D&D 4th edition, which I did love. Mind you, like this is not a system that I was mad when I had to run it, but it was definitely a system that I wanted to play sometimes and run others. If I'd run that game 3 or 4 times a week, that would be very different for me. I would burn out and I would be like, guys, I am not feeling it, and it has nothing to do with my physical health. It is entirely, I am not feeling it this week. I don't have the mental bandwidth to do this. And if you're doing it full professionally, like what we do, that is a big problem because that's your income. So you have to be able to push through that to an extent, right? Like not to the point that you're like going to deliver a bad experience for the players that are paying you, but you need to be able to like look at it and say, okay, I am comfortable on a week where I either didn't have the time or energy to prep, or on a week where I may not be feeling my complete best, but I'm not like out for the count. I can still run something, right? Or I can vibe enough to know like where my inputs need to be, or like where I need to focus my energy. That is a big part of pro GMing, is like knowing your bandwidth, knowing your energy, like where your boundaries and limits are. That's really important. But yeah, that's kind of my piece on that.
All right, so live play,
Yes.
on the other hand, this one is very much more, you got to have people you trust. And I feel this one falls somewhere kind of in that window between professional GMing and your casual home game.
Yeah.
Because, like for me, like the casts that I pick tend to be people that are vetted, people that I trust, people I know. I mean, hell, Sasha from the Chromatic crew, from the Chromatic broadcasts every Wednesday night. She's been, one of my players since like way back before I even figured out who I was.
Yeah.
Or like, no, maybe just after, but yeah, so somewhere around that ballpark. So yeah, you gotta have players that you know and trust. You still got to have that session zero. You got to talk about it. But also there's a different expectation when it comes to live broadcast where, you are doing this to, you are playing a game.
Yes.
You are playing a game for, your players to enjoy, for you to enjoy. But also, you got, much like the famous people that sit in the chair of the hotel, you got someone else watching all this go on.
Yes. Yeah.
We have the audience, and we do this for you. Don't worry, audience. You are there. You are in the present, and I like to find ways to integrate the audience as well. That's why we always have cool stuff going on.
And
so we're like dropping care packages for the party.
Right. So this is to add to why I think this is a separate kind of jamming altogether. On one hand, the casual GM overlap that we get here is the people usually. Or at least know them well enough that you can trust they're not going to do anything that would break TOS on a stream, right? Like, you're not going to have someone start spouting like bigotry on your stream unprompted. Like, that is a very low bar, but it is a bar that has historically for some streamers not been cleared. So that is thing one.
History.
Thing two, you need to be able to trust that the group you are running for is going to be entertaining. This does not mean, by the way, that they need to be trained actors or performers or any of that bullshit. No one that I have ever run for on my streams has that background. They are all just people. I don't pay them. They are very much there because they want to play a game. And so I'm like, you want to play a game at my table? This is what we're going to do. And that's where I started all of this, is because I knew the people that I was talking to were people that had good heads on their shoulders. They had good sense of, when to do things, when not to do things, what was appropriate, what wasn't. And that they would genuinely be entertaining stories to watch unfold from an audience perspective. And so the caveats here is that all of that is the casual friendly side. The hard part is one, when you're dedicating the time to do this every week, you need to make sure you've got everything prepped. And that sounds like, well, yeah, no shit, you're a GM, like you've got to prep anyway, right? This means you have AV assets, right? Like we're talking audio visual assets. So that means your entry cards, your intros, your credits, your even going so far as to like, if you are auto moderating with something like Nightbot, which some of you will see pop up in our streams here, like all of that needs to be ready for stream. And some of that you can prep on the front end and not do much with it in the middle of a season. Others, you will have to be tweaking constantly. Ask me about the Neon Inferno intros. Like, template was set at the start.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're doing a radio intro every single week, you need to like script that, you need to record that, you need to edit that, and then you need to like produce that, and you've got a week. If you're doing it every single week, you need to do that each and every time a new episode comes out. You're like, that is your lead. That is every time you got to do that. And that is in addition to typical GM prep, which is like writing the session, writing the adversaries, setting things up. And on top of all of that, you have to worry about audience expectation and integration, which is stuff like your care packages, like what Diamond mentioned, or other things like maybe they can name NPCs. Maybe they can suggest the direction the narrative will go. They can throw a bit of chaos at you. This is where it starts to come down to what are you as the GM then comfortable with being introduced as chaos into the system that you're building, right? I like to keep a relatively tight narrative so that I'm not at the whims of chaos all the time, because if I loosen that valve too much, I lose complete control, and that is not where I want to be. Other GMs might have a different take on that, and that is going to vary table to table. There's no right one size fits all for that, but that is you, the streamer, are going to need to decide, like, what am I doing? How am I doing it? Where are we going with it? So that is the other kind of thing you need to think about. And then in terms of expectations, you need to now not just evaluate your players' boundaries, you need to establish for yourself a set of like broadcast standards. We're talking, is this subject material too much for broadcast? Could this subject matter be construed in a negative way that is bigoted or problematic in any like meaningful way? You have to analyze the meta politics of it, and that's a very quick amateur mistake to make that will get you canceled on X, formerly Twitter. So it's one of those things where I'm like, the last thing I've said this repeatedly to Diamond, to my wife, to anyone who was in my streams, the last thing I want to do is say or do something that would get me canceled on Twitter because I didn't think about it beforehand or give it enough proper thought or consideration in my planning phase. That is the last thing I want to do. And so that is one of those things that like you need to do that for yourself unless you want to stick a foot in your mouth at some point. And there have even with the care I put into that, there have been times where I've either done it or been very close to doing that, not realizing it. And someone brought it to my attention during like an intermission or something. So like that is really, I think, undervalued and not always well considered if you've got an amateur broadcaster coming in trying to do stuff live. They don't realize how important that is. So yeah. Let's see. Some Saucy Freak gift subbed me. Thanks, Saucy Freak. I believe that is that was probably Barthez. He dropped a ton of subs earlier, and I don't know if
also
you can thank Barthez.
Also dropped like 10 subs on my end as well. And also to whoever the anonymous person that was that gave me $5 to go to PAX. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate.
Yeah. But so yeah, that's my spiel on pro GMing and why, or not pro GMing, but actual play GMing, live GMing, and why that is so different because you're wearing a ton of hats. Also, if technical difficulties happen, you got to do that shit live and fix it and do so as quick as you can. And it's like, when time is of the essence, that is a pressure. You got to be ready for that stress because it can happen to anyone at any time for any number of reasons. Like maybe Discord's just shitting the bed. Maybe your streaming software had a bad patch and suddenly is fucking up bitrate or whatever. You need to be able to wear that hat at a moment's notice and be like, what is going on? And fix it like within 10 minutes or less, probably, if you want the stream to continue. It's a lot. So like, just be ready. It is more accessible though than pro GMing because anyone can stream. Anyone can go live on Twitch in the proper category, title their stream, Cyberpunk Red, and like dive in. But all these other caveats need to be thought of and accounted for and carefully considered, because neglecting any of them could lead to some problems that are varied from like fairly minor to pretty important major, like getting you kicked off the platform level problems, depending on how egregious they are. So yeah, that's my spiel about that.
And then finally, I know we're kind of a little on the overlap here, but
yeah,
casual. We talked a little bit about the home game.
Yeah,
the home game. This is very much the people that you trust, you know. Session 0, I mean, you guys have probably played enough games together. Session 0 might just be, you know, a brief meeting before you guys get into it.
Yeah. Or you might make characters during it too. That's another way that a lot of my home groups have used our Session 0, is we talk about what is our familiarity with the setting. Like when we did Witcher, this was a pretty poignant discussion of like, I knew near nothing about the setting at the time, and a bunch of my friends who were playing the game with me, they did. And so like we spent some time learning about the setting over using safety tools, because safety wasn't really something we were as concerned of, because we all knew each other and we kind of knew our lines. Yeah.
I suppose also on top of that with home game, there's nothing at stake. There is, you know, I mean, the stakes at best are on the table, and probably sitting next to the empty bag of popcorn that, you know, the one player has still not taken back to the kitchen.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's true. Or chips.
I'm looking at you, Fish. The other big thing when it comes to digging into home games is you guys can hit some stuff that's a little closer to home and do it in kind of a safe environment without there being you still got each other like that kind of support net.
You can ride that line a lot closer than I would ever do in a professional game.
The night after, you know, my party died at the end of Reaping the Reaper, where, you know, it's just like I take the damn thing that's covering my eyes up. It's just like, oh fuck, I was not doing okay afterwards. Yeah, nice little trip to Dairy Queen, but I mean, it was one of those things. It was just fucking crazy. And you know, having each other check in, like, you know, between sessions, and, you know, keep each other honest as well. It's important. Also, especially for those of you who are probably figuring out who the hell you are, playing as a character of another gender and saying that it doesn't mean anything. 9 times out of 10 from what I've seen, it does mean something. I'm one of those 9.
Yeah. I will say I've seen plenty of people play cross-gender or at the very least like androgynous at my table and have it mean not a ton. Like I don't place that burden on anyone. Like, role play what you want, play the character you want to play. If you want to cross your gender in the middle of a tabletop, it's a safe space, like, or it should be. And I believe firmly, even in professional settings, that the moment a player makes that weird at my table, I generally, it at the very least is going to spawn a private discussion most of the time.
Yeah.
Just because I would much rather cut that off at the pass. I don't place that expectation at anyone's feet. Like, if you want to role play, you know, and you're, you know, if I'm wanting to role play a girl at a table, that's fine. Like, that's my prerogative. And I know I'm a cisgendered white dude, like very, very, you know, cisgendered heterosexual white dude, like happy to be an ally. And that is as close as I need to get, but I'm happy to role play anyone. I've played plenty of female characters as the GM anyways. So it's like, it is what it is. Don't worry, it won't mean anything if you don't want it to mean anything. That is not what we want to say.
I mean, heck, I've seen other people's eggs crack at the table. And for anyone who doesn't understand, in the queer community, especially the trans community, when the egg cracks, someone figures out, oh, wait, this isn't my gender.
Deep. This runs deep.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. And Barthez points out you have to be comfortable in your masculinity and femininity. Exactly. And that is a very, I think, important part of roleplay in general, and being safe at a table. If the GM is doing a good job of cultivating a safe space, you should never feel awkward or called out for doing something that doesn't strictly align with your real life identities and things like that. You can play anyone or do anything. Like that is that's the beauty of tabletop. All
right.
So, Snow Taco, thank you for that sub to Diamond. By the way, I just saw that in chat as well.
Oh, nice.
Yep. So we definitely gone a little long on this end of the episode, but I don't feel terrible about it. I think the discussion's been very good.
This was kind of important, talk about the purposes of GMing. And I suppose last but not least, just don't know what you're getting into. Just know what you're getting into.
Yes.
Like
also
take time to
do
your
go
homework.
Ahead. Yes.
Do your homework, and for you professional GMs and live play GMs, do your taxes.
Do your taxes. That is also
taxes.
Quarterlies are a thing we don't think about if you're in America and your government refuses to do your taxes for you. Bear in mind that we are expected to do taxes every quarter, not every year as professionals. So make sure you do those. They are a pain in my ass every 2 to 4 months, depending on which quarter we're talking about. So so
somehow I'm still ahead of the game on it. So that's a good side.
That is a good sign. No, they just look. Even the Joker doesn't fuck with the IRS. So with that said, also I want to call Prepperjack. Thank you so much for the 5,000 bits. It's very generous of you. Thank you. But that's kind of our discussion on GMing for purpose. If you have questions about this, as usual, we invite you to ask them, whether it be in our comment section below this video on Spotify or over on YouTube if you're watching this on my YouTube channel for my half of this episode. Additionally, down in our description, there's going to be a link to Diamond's half of our episode this week, where we are going to be talking about a little more of the expectations for Cyberpunk. We've had some very interesting experiences lately and conversations that we do want to talk about on that front. So if you want to hear our discussion on that, go over to Diamond's channel. It'll be linked down in the description below for her half of today's episode. If you are listening to us live, though, over on Twitch right now, or if you are over on Spotify, just stick with us. We will be right back to discuss more. But for my half of the episode, my name is Emmerron.
And I'm Diamond Dust.
And I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Stay healthy, stay safe. And until the next time we see each other, peace.
See you soon.